Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a talk for the very first time ever on this channel about Hatterene. We got our first ever Hatterene card, and I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, this is one that could get extremely annoying extremely quickly. I am a big fan of this card. It's a stage 2, and yeah, that's kind of annoying, boo hiss, etc. But this could be awesome. Now, our translation, like for all of these cards at the moment, does come from the lovely Antoine Boulet, one of our very favourites. And if we start off having a look at the basics, we've got 150 HP, which is alright for a stage 2. Not great, not phenomenal, just fine. Retreat cost of 2, which means air balloon to retreat. Weakness to darkness, which means we're looking out for stuff like Obstagoon. I'll be honest with you, darkness isn't a phenomenal type at the moment. And a resistance to fighting, which... I mean, fighting isn't seeing a huge amount of play at the moment, but a whole bunch of stuff like Pikachu and Zekrom that's weak to fighting is, so maybe this becomes a lot better in the future. We do, however, love being a psychic Pokemon. It means we got Mysterious Treasure to go and search us out. It means we've got Spell Tag to do a little bit of extra damage when you're KO'd. It would mean Malamar to accelerate energy if you needed to accelerate energy. But since we can all see on the screen at the moment that this attack is for 1 psychic energy, I don't think we need to worry our pretty little heads about it too much. And you are hitting weakness against a bunch of really awesome things. Things like, Mewtwo and Mew, for instance. One of the very best cards in the game at the moment. Not that that's going to be relevant. You don't do damage here. You drop damage counters. Let me explain, shall we? So starting off then, what we've got is an ability. Once during your turn, before you attack, you may use this ability. Both players discard a card from their hand. Your opponent discards first, which might be relevant if it is something that informs you of their future plans. So let's say, for argument's sake, they discard a custom catcher after they've already discarded 2. That would probably tell you that their final custom catcher is in the prizes. They're not expecting to be able to use it, so you know that they're not going to be gusting. Just a random little example. The thing is, I see this in the exact same way as I see something like Jesse and James, which is double this ability. Both players discard 2 cards from their hand. You are prepared for this and your opponent isn't. Firstly, you're the one playing it, so you're able to actually say whether you want to or not. And secondly, you built your deck knowing that you're going to be discarding from your hand. So you've built your deck to be able to work around this. Your opponent, I'm willing to bet, probably hasn't. And that's what's so good about this. It's the combination of, I'm only going to use this when I've got something in my hand that I'm willing to discard, and I am building my deck knowing that I'm going to be discarding from my hand, so we're all good. This can be extremely disruptive. I mean, especially when it gets late in the game. Let's say you're behind in the game. What are you going to do? Same thing everybody does at the moment when they're behind in the game. You're going to drop a reset stamp. Well, let's say you've got Hatterene on the field, and then you drop a reset stamp to put your opponent down to 1 card in their hand. You then use this ability. And now they don't have 1 card in their hand. They have 0 cards in their hand. And sure, maybe they top deck something on their turn. But actually, the reality is they're probably not going to be able to. They're probably not going to. So yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. And I'm not seeing any note in Antoine's translation here that this only works in the active or is only limited to once per turn. So that means that you can stack this. And you can get 2 Hatterene down, and then you can have your opponent discard 2 cards from their hand, so maybe you reset stamp to 2, and then make them discard 2. The great thing about this is, yes, okay, your opponent chooses the cards to discard, but you know what? If you put them in a position where it doesn't matter, that's brilliant. I mean, if you reset stamp them to 4, and then Jesse and James and 2 Hatterene, they've got a 0 card hand. Between Reset Stamp, Jesse and James and this, especially if you're playing multiples, it is absolutely possible that you can put your opponent down to a 0 card hand here. And then, of course, we probably should mention Chip Chip Ice Axe, which will fix your opponent's top deck. and then they're definitely not drawing into anything good. Sounds like fun! But we've also got an attack here. Place damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon equal to the number of Pokemon in your discard pile. Hang on a second. That sounds extremely familiar. Because I believe, depends exactly when this gets uploaded, but if it's uploaded in the order I'm expecting to upload them, that means that it's exactly the same as that Spiritomb we looked at 2 days ago. Like, exactly the same as that Spiritomb. Seriously, I'll leave them both up on the screen for a minute. You can compare the text side by side, and even if you don't read Japanese, if you really want to go through character by character, you'll see that it's the exact same wording. Oh, now this is nice. Because you see, when I looked at Spiritomb, I basically had two reservations. The attack cost and the low HP. Well, Hatterene comes in with 2.5 times the HP and a single energy attack. And let's be perfectly clear about this, right? If I'm playing Hatterene, I'm playing Spiritomb. Even if you don't want to play Darkness Energy, we've got both Aurora Energy at the moment, and we've got Rainbow Energy, so we've got 8 different cards, 8 total cards, I suppose, that we can play that would pay the attack cost of either of these Pokemon. Because Hatterene is specifically only a Psychic, it does mean that you can't just play Darkness and put it on Hatterene as well. For anyone that's wondering, no, there is no unit energy that's got both of these typings on. The unit energies are different. But this is brilliant. And you see, if we remember what the attack does, and then go back to look at the ability, this takes on a whole different context. We've still got all of that you can wreck their hand at the end of the game malarkey, except now you want to discard a card from your hand. This lets you discard a Pokemon, which means you do an extra damage counter, and your opponent has to discard. You see how that works out? You can probably at this point see why I'm so gosh darned excited about this card. Your opponent is going to really struggle with this. And the best part is that when we get to the late game, that's when you're going to have the most Pokemon in your discard. So by the time you get to your opponent having 1 or 2 prizes remaining, the likelihood is you're going to probably be one-hit KOing whatever they've got. And you're going to have this ability that discards a card from your hand and from theirs. So play a few reset stamp, would you? And then you can just absolutely wreck. You can make sure they've got like no cards in their hand while you're one-hitting everything. It really doesn't matter if you go down a few prizes when you're playing this, as long as you're playing stuff like reset stamp you can use to cover. And I do think you play the pair of Pokemon here. And then, I mean, honestly, I'm not going to repeat all of it. You can go and watch a Spiritomb video. It's linked in the description. But we've got stuff like Duskull, which just lets you discard 3 cards from your hand. And let's not forget that we've now got Professor's Research, whereby you discard your hand and draw 7 cards. We've got Quick Ball that lets you discard a card from your hand and then search for a basic Pokemon. And hey, remember a minute ago when I mentioned Aurora Energy? What's the downside of Aurora Energy? Discarding a card from your hand. Oh look, you want to be discarding your Pokemon here. This is just brilliant. These make such a wonderful, wonderful pair. You see, the thing is, if Hatterene only had this attack, I'd still love it. I would really love it because we've got a single energy version of Spiritomb's attack, and in the late game you're going to be talking 250 damage for a single energy. And Psychic Pokemon with stuff like Mysterious Treasure, not for nothing, also discards a card from your hand, and Spell Tag that drops extra damage if you need it. It's just brilliant. And if we ignore the attack here, the ability can legitimately cripple your opponent's hand with the help of Reset Stamp and maybe something like Jesse and James and Chip Chip Ice Axe. But then you put the two of them together in one Pokemon, and literally the only issue here is it's a stage 2. Now, the fact that it's for a single energy that you attack really helps. And remember, stage 2s are better now. We've got stuff like Inteleon. And the great thing is, right, Inteleon, when you evolve it up, you search your deck for 2 trainers. Drizzile, you search your deck for 1. But you can play a Fat Inteleon Drizzile line because you need to pad your deck out with Pokemon to discard to fuel your attack anyway. So why not? And then, of course, you've got stuff like Rosa that if you had a Pokemon KO'd the previous turn, lets you search for a Pokemon, Hatterene, train a card, Rare Candy, and Basic Energy, Psychic, and as long as you've got the basic on your bench, you play a Rosa and you are attacking this turn. It's wonderful. And you can play whatever Pokemon you like in the early game. I mean, this also works phenomenally with Giratina, because you can have Giratina as a non-GX attacker, you can have it in the discard and have it coming out of the discard to do damage to your opponent's Pokemon, or you can just leave it in the discard to boost your attack. This ability could wreck your opponent, especially in the late game. This attack is the exact same one I got super excited for with Spiritomb, except for 1 energy, and yes, I know it's a stage 2, but I've gone through all the tricks and tools we've got in this video and I am not worried. There are a lot of cards that are exciting me from this set. And look, I said Phalanx was my favourite and I stand by that. This ain't no Phalanx in terms of my excitement level. But oh my goodness, this is a phenomenal card that I think has a huge, huge amount of potential. I'm giving it between 4 and 5 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. Might seem too high. I'm cool with it. This card's awesome. I want to see this starting to win tournaments, and I honestly think it will. But I'd like to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are awesome. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.